Welcome to Behind the Campaign, the podcast where marketers pull back the curtain on some of their favorite campaigns. Today, I'm joined by Carl Ronander, who is the Vice President of Marketing at Funnel. Hello, Carl. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Sure. And you're coming to us from Stockholm. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So we're based in Stockholm, Sweden. And so that's where I'm calling in from today.
Great. Tell our listeners a little bit about Funnel. What do you guys do?
Yeah. So Funnel is basically a tool that helps marketers become more data driven in working with their marketing. So what we do is that we collect all of your marketing data, which is usually spread out on loads of different platforms. We predominantly work with digital platforms, but we can also help you with your offline data. Marketers have a big problem in collecting all of that data and then making that business ready. That is a big chore still today for a lot of marketers. We spend a lot of time on just doing that. So what we do automatically for you is that we collect it and then we transform it, we clean it, and we make it business ready so that you can act on that data and decide if you want to take that data somewhere else. You might have a setup where you work with a data lake or that kind of solution, or you can do more of your analysis in Funnel as a tool. So we offer dashboards, and we also offer something which is more of an advanced marketing measurement solution. So you can do mixed marketing modeling, MTA analysis, incremental testing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's basically a data tool for marketers.
I think that is a much needed tool because there's not a lot out there that really can do what you guys do. So that's great. So today we're talking a little bit about this campaign, and I love the kind of tagline of this campaign. It's Make Data Dance. How did this idea come about? What was the inspiration? Kind of what was your brainstorming around this?
Yeah, so we were at an interesting point sort of in the history of funnels. So prior to me joining Funnel had been around we were getting up to 10 years as a platform, and we'd sort of predominantly we'd worked as this data collection service. But the platform itself, or the tool itself, was expanding to an area that we call marketing intelligence. So it's basically, allowing you to do more with the data rather than just collecting it. So we were at that point of the platform changing a little bit into something new. We were also at a point where there wasn't really a clear brand story or a clear brand narrative around what Funnel stood for and what we wanted to be. It had sort of grown organically, and I think this is often the case if you've been in product-led organizations, that the product is the hero and you talk a lot about the features and what the product can do, but maybe not as much sort of addressing the emotional opportunities to communicate with your audience. So we had that, and we also had sort of a growth model where Funnel has grown a lot. We are one of Sweden's fastest growing startups to scale ups in recent years. So we'd seen great growth, but that growth was really dependent on a performance heavy model. We invested a lot of money in media and specifically performance marketing. So we knew, as sort of, if you know marketing science and how that works, that might not be the best sort of allocation of your budget to spend too much on performance and too much on sort of activating your customers. So based on sort of the learnings that we know of, the long and the short of it, if you've read that, we also have thinkers like Tom Roach talking about sort of the performance plateau, where it's easy that you overspend on sort of that short term, trying to get customers in. So we wanted to sort of expand our marketing strategy a bit and move to more of a short and long of it, doing more brand building initiatives. So this whole campaign that you mentioned, Make Data Dance, is actually part of a sort of a bigger thing that happened within the company of defining a new brand narrative and a brand platform, coming up with this concept. That then also led to us reviewing our identity and our brand, so our brand identity and our design, and actually creating a completely new logo and profile, which wasn't like the original thinking. But when we found this concept, we felt that the way we used to look didn't really fit with what we wanted to achieve with it. So we ended up redoing a lot of things with sort of within the scope of this concept. So yeah, that's basically where it came from.
Very nice. Now, I know your target audience is typically IT teams, data analysts, but for this particular campaign, you took a different route with your audience and were addressing more of the agency side and marketers. Why the switch during this campaign?
Yeah, well, I'd say that's partly right. I would say that the target audience for Funnel has always been marketers, actually. So the platform is predominantly used by marketers, perhaps by marketers that are a bit more technical in sort of where they come from and very used to handling a lot of data. And with that, we also do have a lot of data analysts, to your point, and IT working with the product. Funnel has always been built with the intention that any marketer should be able to use the platform without sort of the knowledge of how to code or sort of being a marketing scientist or a data scientist. So yes, this concept and this campaign, we wanted to allow us to speak to a broader marketing audience because we believe that all marketers should be more data driven, and we see that that's what marketers want. That's what um, companies want their marketing organizations to be, is to be more data driven. And we believe that marketing needs to be more data driven to again gain influence in business, because we see that maybe that's been slipping a little bit. We've been focusing on the wrong things maybe, that and not being as data driven. So we wanted to do that, but we also wanted to broaden the audience a bit more than just the direct user of the product, because the direct user has some kind of technical understanding of how marketing data works. But we wanted to address a bigger group because both to reach a wider marketing audience, but also to, as we know, buyer groups in B2B companies usually do not sort of consist of one person. There's multiple people in those buying groups. And we were seeing in our own data that if we had sales calls with and demo calls with a larger group of people, not only including marketers or the direct user of the product, we had a greater probability of actually getting getting a customer, and also the value of that deal will usually go up. So as the research also will show you, it's extremely important to be in the mind of the buying group the first day that journey starts. I think it's Bain and Co. that did this study, and it shows that you're somewhere between 80 and 90% of the companies that are chosen by the buyer group, they are on the list the first day of the procurement period. So it's really about sort of getting in mind of the people that will eventually make the decision about the purchase. So that's why we wanted to broaden the audience a bit and use this creative messaging to do so.
It's funny, a couple of episodes ago, I spoke with the CEO of a CMS platform, and he
Mhm.
was there kind of taking the same approach that you guys are, where you're kind of bringing together the technical side of the business, the IT teams and the marketing side of the business. And who would have thought the software companies out here would be bringing together those two groups that
Yeah.
in oftentimes in companies can butt heads sometimes, the IT teams and marketers. So you guys are out here doing the work to solve peace within these companies.
Yeah.
So that's kind
Hopefully.
of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. So what were you really kind of trying to accomplish with this campaign? Obviously, your messaging is kind of to that, anybody should be able to work with this data and, to make it easier to do that. What were some of the other kind of goals that you had?
I think what we really wanted to achieve was to add more emotional sort of a more emotional way of communicating to the audience with the brand through this campaign. Everyone might not think that, but I guess usually data might have a rep of being something quite dry and boring, and it's all about logic. And so we thought that, you know, maybe we could add another perspective to that and make it a bit more exciting and fun, because we know sort of the first job of our brand and our marketing is catch the attention of people. We need to stand out. We need to do something that people notices in all the noise that they're being bombarded with every day. So if we can do that, we've solved the first problem. And I think to do that, you need to do something that grabs your attention and speaks to you in a slightly So we wanted to add that emotional sort of appeal with this as well. Um, and what we did, or what we did, was to do. We started off with doing more of a strategic brand work, where we interviewed a lot of our customers and spoke to them, and also conducted a lot of internal workshops to understand what was it that people sort of felt for funnel, rather than just, okay, this is what it does, this is the feature. What do you feel when you think about funnel? And for a customer that's never been asked that question, it can be quite hard to express. But we were able to drill it down, and there were really two things that we got from both then external and internal groups. And the first one was about control. So that when you had funnel as a platform, you felt in control of your marketing data. And that's like a big sense of relief with all this data and like all the complexity of it. When I feel in control, that's a really good starting position, right? And then the other thing was that people felt was courage. And that was that when I have the insights and I know I can trust them and I am in control, I can be more courageous with my marketing. I feel empowered and I can do more exciting things. And basically, as marketeers, that's what we want, right? So the strategic foundation of what we wanted to communicate with Funnel was that we give you courage through control. So that was the idea we got from the insight work we did. And then the campaign as such, I mean, when you talk to people who work a lot with data, they often think of data flows and structures a lot like symphonies and orchestration and those type of things. I don't think it's not a coincidence that people that are quite mathematical and sort of in that sense also are quite sort of talented musicians often, because they can see the patterns, they can work in that way. So we had that as well. And actually this was pretty early, but working together with AI, we did do a bit of prompting to sort of try to find if we want to be in this world of courage and control, and also have the idea of synchronization or orchestration, or we found a word that we really liked, which was choreography. So that was given to us by a very early version of ChatGPT, that could be an interesting word to play with. And through that, we then came up with the idea of, oh yeah, so what we actually do is that we choreograph your marketing data for you, so that it can flow effortlessly, but also create this beauty. And basically that is dance, right? So we make your data dance. That's really how that came about. So that's what we wanted to get across with this. So the sort of an emotional way to express that feeling of courage through control.
You mentioned choreography, and I know you had some creative, and you kind of took a different approach with several different creative pieces, but you had one around kind of cheerleading and this idea of when one person is off, the whole kind of orchestration, if you want to call it, the whole scene gets off. How did that come about? Because you don't really think of kind of cheerleading when you think of data.
No, for sure. And that's what we wanted. We wanted to have that contrast in what we showed, but also making it interesting to, or actually making a point about how you work with your data. So that was actually the sort of the second stage of the campaign that we did. So when we launched it, what we then talked about was how funnel can be a catalyst for your data. So we took 3 examples, and I don't think that's necessarily what you would think about when you think about data as well. So we compared funnel to a catalyst as a banjo at a hoedown, his boy band to teenage girls, and a shot of tequila. So those were the sort of the 3 things that we compared funnel to as being a catalyst for something, and basically saying that like we are like a banjo at a hoedown. We make your data dance like a banjo can do at a hoedown. So that's where we started, sort of about that sort of catalyst thing. And then, as you rightfully said, the cheerleading campaign was then about the importance of synchronization and moving together. And that was that campaign a bit more specifically talked about our advanced measurement solution, which is about seeing the full picture, right? So in these campaigns or in these commercials, we see a cheerleader and it looks like she's doing well and she's doing okay. But when you zoom out and see the full picture, you see that she's actually offbeat. And that's what we wanted to show. Like, it's important in your marketing that you see the fuller picture. Like, a campaign in isolation or an idea in isolation can look like it's doing really well. But if you don't see how it's working in the fuller picture, then maybe it's not, it's not working the way you thought. And that's the fuller picture that we give you. So yeah, that was the idea behind that. So it was all about that idea of that marketing is cheerleading. I think it's like the first message we give in that campaign.
Yeah. Like you mentioned earlier, data can sometimes be dry and boring. I'm kind of a split mind because I'm more of a words person than a numbers
Yeah.
person, but I am also somewhat OCD and I like order and, don't
Mm.
like chaos. So
Yeah.
I have a split mind on this, but how does this campaign, this Make Data Dance campaign, kind of get more people or people more excited about the possibility of what data can do for them?
So I think it's partly just talking about data in a different way and, you know, differentiating from what our competitors in this space were doing. I can tell you that no one was doing something similar to this. So it's about just like getting that interest and getting people to hopefully put a bit of a smile on people's face and an interest. Then, of course, we need to follow that up with other messaging as you move sort of as you become interested in the product or as we retarget you. We need to talk more about the product specifically. But the job of these was really just to capture your attention and to get you interested in funnel as a business. And then we need to get down into the more nitty gritty stuff as you move down your customer journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think what data can do for you, I think when you see the power of good data and what that can do for your business and for your marketing efforts, that has a powerful message and people start to get it, I think, then when they can see that and that message, that funnel can help you do that, I think brings a lot to the table. So that's great. I think it's interesting this kind of in some ways, it's a juxtaposition, this idea of data, this kind of, structured, maybe dry data, and
yeah.
this idea of beauty and art and dance and all of that. In some ways, it's a juxtaposition, but in the way you described it just a few minutes ago, it does make sense. And so I think, like, what was the reaction from people when you kind of started rolling this out? Did people get it? Do they, react positively to it?
Yeah, I think we predominantly got positive responses from it. Of course, there's always going to be people, that might think that it's not for them, or think that it's too far off from what we do as a product. But predominantly, we've been seeing really good reactions from it. And what we did see was that, and I think this was a combination of all the things we were doing. We did update the brand. We communicated in a completely new way with a creative concept. We changed our strategy from a predominantly performance driven one to a combination of a more long term brand building and short term conversion strategy. And, I think what tells the clearest message is like, okay, so we need to be data driven as well in how we evaluate it. And we have a predominant KPI that we look at for ourselves as a marketing organization. As a growth company, it's really important that we deliver a high sales pipe to our sales organization. We were predominantly then sort of built around an inbound motion of sales, but of course we want to do so in an effective way, right? So that's lowering the cost and the money we need to spend to make that pipe as big as possible. And we, looking at the numbers, we started communicating this um, in spring of 2024. That's when
Mhm.
we made this change. And looking at it year over year, so if we compare it, if we look at January 2024 to May 2025, we have a measure that is cost per dollar in pipe. So how much do we have to pay to get a dollar in pipe? And we've been able to cut that number in half.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, we are. If we look at our sales pipe, that was at 127% of budget. We lowered our customer acquisition costs, so our CAC. We lowered that by 41%, and we did all of these things with around 7% lower media budget. So we were actually spending less money, getting higher quality leads, and sort of yeah, really getting the evidence that this was working. So it was really interesting to see because, for us, it was also an experiment that we believed in the principles of marketing science and the rules of how you're supposed to balance your marketing. And from what we can tell, it has really worked. We can also see that we have a bit of a challenge having a name as funnel because you might think, oh, that's a good name for a marketing product, but it's also one that, it's a kitchen funnel and it's general marketing funnel. So it's a bit tricky for us to know, for example, from search, if we're being more sought after in Google. But we can see that the branded search year over year increased something like I think around 30-40% as well. So we were getting sort of more people wanting to understand what funnel.io did. So yeah, I think we saw a lot of really positive outcomes from the campaign.
Oh, that sounds great. You talked a little bit about the kind of this idea of, you know, going after kind of marketers and helping them, see that they can do data too, right? They
Yep.
shouldn't be afraid of it. Is kind of where, I kind of go in my mind with that. Is that something that was kind of, baked into this campaign, this idea that, that funnel is making data more accessible, and how does that kind of relate with the dance?
No, but I think you're spot on there, and that's exactly what we wanted to do to make it more approachable. So it's if we only speak to or only spoke to sort of the core user, a very technical marketer, we would never be able to expand beyond that group, right? Even if we knew that, yeah, without any specific pre-knowledge, funnel can make a big difference for you in your marketing. So yeah, that's definitely it, making it more accessible and approachable. Um, During this time as well, we also launched a free version of funnel. So I think that really helped out as well, that you could either go down the route of talking to a salesperson and getting a demo, but you could also try the product out yourself. So it was just not about us telling you that it was easy. It was actually experiencing it for yourself, even if that's a product where you cannot necessarily do everything. It's a quite generous product, but there was that opportunity to go there and try for yourself and understand that this isn't as bad as I thought, or as tricky or as scary. Because I'm a marketer, but I do not come from the data side. I come more from the creative side of marketing. Before I joined Funnel, I'd be in the group that would be quite afraid of data and sort of not understanding where to go with it. So yeah, no, it was definitely a big reason for this campaign as well.
As someone who comes from a content marketing background, it bestills my heart to hear the software companies talking about how they're balancing more this idea of talking about product features and benefits, but also trying to build relationships and have that more emotional type of marketing campaign. And you mentioned marketing science and the balance that you have to have. It sounds like it's working for you. Do you anticipate this is a direction that you will continue to go in, where you have this kind of balance of, yes, you need to talk about the products and features, but you're also trying to provide value above and beyond that product?
No, for sure. So I think before we launched this, I would say 90% of our spend went into more performance driven or converting. Whereas if we look sort of early this year, I'd say that split is somewhere around 30% on brand building and maybe 70% on the conversion side. So we're still heavily focused on making sure we fill the sales pipe and we get people to to come in. But I think that's also, I mean, it's a very costly way of driving it, and we need to find, you as a business, you need to find ways of getting more leads in a different way. And with all the changes that we're seeing in marketing right now, and sort of with the boom of AI and everything, I think this will become more and more important. And having that sort of that authentic voice, and having that really thought through leadership content that also has sort of your unique point of view to it, that will become even more important. So part of this, of course, is what we're talking about now is the campaign, but a bigger part of that, if you talk about content, it's also continuing to talk more about value and talking about, what are the category entry points for your customers and things, or potential customers, and what they care about and think about. And that is beyond your own functionality. There is this thing in tech, which is the product delusion, that we believe that the product will solve everything and we should just talk about that. But quite often the reality of the customer is something very different. So yeah, that's what we need to talk about as well.
Very good. Well, I have been glad to learn about this campaign and learn a little bit about more about funnel. Is there anything else you would like our listeners to know about funnel, or anything you have coming up that they should know about?
Well, we're at a very interesting point where the company is growing a lot in terms of what we offer. So we are moving from a place where we used to be mostly this data hub, but now really growing into this marketing intelligence platform. So there will be lots of interesting features and new products being launched, starting pretty soon. So that's everything from, you know, activation of your first party data, sending your data
Mm,
back into platforms, which can really improve the performance of your marketing. But then also other exciting things happening later this year and beginning of next year. I don't know how much I can say about that, but so new
that's
products
okay.
coming.
We won't
Coming.
push you.
No, no. But I think sort of addressing more of the challenges that marketers face and really allowing them to be data driven in every step of the way. That's really what we're working towards. And then, of course, we already have AI embedded a lot in our more advanced analytics products. So when we talk about advanced measurement, their AI is a natural part of what we do. But we'll also see more AI functionality coming to life in the product within the next couple of months, which is really exciting. And I think we've been very determined there not to just add AI on as slap it on, but actually for it to have a real value and work smartly with you and your data. So we're at a point there where that's going to be released soon. So I'm very excited about that as well. So a lot of things happening. I encourage all marketers and other people that work with marketing in organizations to visit funnel.io. And as I said, there is a free version of the product. You can try that out, or just
Awesome.
book a call and let someone demo the product for you.
Sounds great. We'll make sure
Yeah,
we include that.
cool.
Well, thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate
Thank
the
you.
conversation. This has been
Bye.
fun. I always enjoy hearing about the different campaigns and kind of how people's thinking is around them. So this was a great conversation. Thank you so
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And it was a pleasure.